What can we do to resist the urge to possess, to compare, or to use?
God, I think, allows us to feel in sense, our inability to really achieve this. But he wants us to keep trying so that we can get a sense of how weak we are. So then we call out to him, Lord.
I wish I had been told this when I was in 5th grade and there was pornography everywhere and half my friends, including an altar boy, were showing that.
First, you ask whatever the question is. And in this case, if your marriage is struggling enough, to ask the question is like, hey, what can I do to make our marriage better? Or what am I missing here? There are two types of men. When the pain is there's the slave who runs, or he's a hireling. He flees from the pain, and therefore he never grows into the real man. But there's the other one who's the son.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Catholic Gentleman. We are so grateful for your time. We've got my co-host and close friend, wonderful man, Devin Schadt. Devin, how are you doing today?
Doing good, John. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and glad to be here with you. Glad to talk about this. I just came back as you and I were talking about from the Diocese of Lafayette to Redbird Ministries that helps men and women suffering from the loss of a child. They just have a new ministry coming out that is helping individuals with the loss of a suicide of a loved one, and it was just so unbelievably heartbreaking, but at the same time filled with like hope and belonging and love. And it was just incredible. And then I spoke to some men on Saturday morning, and as you so often do, I want to do a shout out to the men of the Diocese of Lafayette, because what incredible Catholic men there are in that diocese. And I just am so grateful for their time and joining me in fellowship, right? The strength of men when we get together is something the world needs a lot more of. And I was able to witness it over there with those men. So praise God for that.
Yeah, that diocese is very strong. I think, as we were talking about, I think it is either the number one or in the top 3 dioceses as far as Catholic concentration related to the populace. So it's like so dense there, the Catholicism.
It was just incredible.
Yeah.
Born out of, what were you going to say? Sorry.
Born out of persecution, like you were saying, Canadian
that's
persecution.
Right. Yeah. And man, they still have it. They know their roots. They know their history. And it was, man, exciting, because I couldn't tell you that here in Dallas-Fort Worth. I know we got great Catholic individuals, and I love the communities that are here, but they all knew the history. They all knew why they're Catholic and the suffering that their forefathers endured. So,
well, it was very interesting when I gave a 4-part retreat down there in that diocese, and I was out in front of the church, and almost every driver that drove by the church blessed themselves. And I'm like, gosh, I don't see that anywhere. Like,
no.
I mean, you almost don't even see anybody bless themselves when they drive by a Catholic church now. But there it was almost every operator of a vehicle was blessing themselves. It's very impressive.
How amazing. Yeah. So when I was driving around, I found myself actually humored by that, the amount of times that I was doing the sign of the cross past churches and cemeteries, because there's as many cemeteries, beautiful cemeteries next to these churches. And it was humorous. We drove 15 minutes, and I would say 7 times I did the sign of the cross, went by 3 churches, 3 cemeteries, prayed for the poor souls, and then there was Our Lady of Lourdes hospital or something. And it was just like really beautiful. I know, right? Praise God. Like, that's worth it. All right. Well, let's dive in today. So today's episode, we're going to uncover a truth that many good men who love their wives are unwittingly making mistakes that convince her that she isn't loved, not because they lack affection, but because they don't see what she sees. And so if you've ever asked yourself, why doesn't my wife feel cherished when I'm doing everything I think is right? This is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to actually discuss 4 marriage mistakes rooted in what our wives often feel versus husbands often miss. And so before we get going, I have a favor to ask all of our listeners, and it costs you nothing. And that is, please hit that like and subscribe button. This helps the platforms reach more men. They start showing it to more men. It's something that would be a huge blessing to us. And Devin and I will commit to constantly coming out with better episodes and more episodes reaching to men in need. And we're so grateful for that. Finally, this would cost you something, but if you are looking to donate, we've got Catholic Gentlemen Plus, which is our membership program filled with tons of unique sessions for men, as well as PDFs, daily saint quotes coming to your SMS or your inbox. It's a great way to support the Catholic Gentleman. It keeps this going. Head over to CatholicGentlemanPlus.com. So, as we're mentioning, right, we've got good intentions don't always equal a felt love on behalf of our wives. And many marriages suffer quietly. We brought it up in a number of weeks ago that one of those statistics that over 70%, I think it was 73%, cite communication problems and kind of like an unwillingness to work through it as the primary reason for divorce, why they got divorced. And so, we have to constantly be working at this. And it's something that I find it's so easy to ignore, right? Because the noises of our lives, and I'm working for the sake of my family, and so that should be enough. Or I took my wife on a date this one time. Doesn't she remember, right? And I say that these kind of extremes, but really it's something that we all struggle with. It's something that I struggle with all the time too. Or, well, I woke up the other morning and I told my wife, let's go on a date tonight. And she was like, no, we've got X, Y, and Z. Well, she saw that I tried, like we tell ourselves these things. And so before we get going and dive headfirst, Devin, what do you think keeps good men from recognizing this within their wives and being able to connect with them?
Do you really want to know?
We're diving in head first. I said before, and there we go.
So that's really the question. Do you really want to know? And I think that's really what's stopping us, is that we don't want to know. I'm being straightforward, very honest. So fundamentally, we have a job to do as husbands, and we need to ask our wives, what is it that they need? What will make them secure in love? What will make them feel loved and feel closeness? What aren't they getting? Those are kind of like the three questions from us. What aren't they getting from us? What would they want from us? And the truth of the matter, though, is we're afraid to go there. We really don't want to know. And so we may think we know, and we kind of want to rest there, because once we ask the question, we say, well, honey, what is it that I could do to make you more secure in love? Or what am I doing that's causing insecurity in our relationship? Or what is it that you need that I'm not giving you? Now you both know. And we don't want to go down that road, because we don't want her to know and I to know what she needs, because then we're held accountable. So all I'm saying is I think as men, we have so many burdens and so many responsibilities and duties in life, from work, child rearing, financial, situations, cars breaking down, repairing them, whatever it is, fixing up the house. And then we're like, oh man, just one more thing. Can't this relationship just kind of take care of itself? So it's almost like, really fundamentally, why doesn't it work? It's because we won't go there, because actually we're not courageous enough and brave enough to go there. We just don't want to open up that can of worms.
Yeah. So men, this is where it starts, is having these conversations with your wife. This is where it starts for us. And this is a reminder. It's a reminder as much for all of us. Every single time I'm preparing these episodes, I'm like, oh, that's right. I don't do that. And so I like to be honest about that. My wife, humorously gives me a hard time when I'm going through these. Hey, Julie, this is what we're going to be talking about today. And she's like, that sounds amazing. And I'm like, oh, I got it. And so, but it's that communication. And so what we're hoping to do within this talk is, in this conversation here, is to constantly help men open up this communication more and more, because this can change the world. And this can honestly, your eternal salvation and that of your families is at stake. And so what's at stake is never greater, and the time is never more, I'd say, influenced by the culture, by temptations, by the diabolic, and so we find ourselves in 2025. But God knew that He wanted you alive here in 2025, and so this is what we're called to do. So we're going to go through 4 of these categories, and I gave up. I just taken a great page from my friend and co-host Devin Schadt. I came up with 4 P's to fit this all in, and so the first one is purity. The next one is presence. The next one is partnership. And the last one is peace. And so we're going to come up and we're going to talk about what I mean and what we mean by those: purity, presence, partnership, and peace. And within those, we've got 2 to 4 little subsections within them that we're going to talk about, but you're going to get the gist. And so starting here with purity, and that's, she must know that she's the only one. I grabbed this great quote from Dietrich von Hildebrand. I just was like, you know what? His Defense of Purity book, I haven't read it in 15 years, but I remember reading it and being like, oh my goodness, like I am so far from that. And so I grabbed this quote here just to get us started on this section. And it's, purity is the reverence for the mystery of the other person. It is the ability to see with loving eyes what the other is, and to resist the urge to possess, compare, or use. And so within this talk, within this conversation, I don't call it a talk, within this conversation, I hope I don't just talk. Exactly. I want to talk about purity, right? So what can we do to resist the urge to possess, to compare, or to use? And so just using that compare here, we're going to jump into that first one here, which is ogling other women, or noticeably looking at other women, right? Because purity guards the eyes and the heart, custody of the eyes, right? It protects us, and it does. It protects us and protects our wives from, our wandering eyes, which just tell her that she's being compared and not uniquely desired. And so I think this one is so important for men to get their heads wrapped around. And custody of the eyes doesn't just have to be other women that are walking in front of you. It can be billboards. It can be magazines. It can be anything that when you're standing at the supermarket or walking through the airport and you see any images of women, and you find yourself, because sex sells and it's everywhere, finding yourself looking at that, even if your wife is not there. And this is so important. And so, Devin, thoughts on this first one here?
Man. Okay. So yes, if we're starting out with the idea of purity, it's very important because this has ultimate eschatological and salvific ramifications. So blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. Okay. So depending on how we see, depending on how we look, will depend on whether or not we see God, and particularly how we see our wives and how we see other women. So this is very important. So what we're not saying, though, and I think we need to, right from the get-go, is, guys, you just need to be pure. Like, that's not how to do it. It's impossible. Like, this is impossible for us on our own. So there's 2 kind of, as St. Thomas Aquinas with virtue, there's the human habit, and then God kind of fans that into flame with the divine assistance, where he pours forth grace by the gift and power of the Holy Spirit. So we do have to try to be pure in our humanity by our own efforts, our own will. But this is, God, I think, allows us to feel and sense our inability to really achieve this. But he wants us to keep trying so that we can get a sense of how weak we are. So then we call out to him, Lord, give me purity of sight so that I can see other women and see my wife properly. Now, so back to that. The Lord will only give you the grace to be pure to the level that you're striving and asking for purity. So if you're desirous of purity and you're actually striving for purity, even if your efforts stink, even if the consequences of those efforts are not getting the results you want, regardless, God will inflate you, infuse you, empower you, whatever you want to say, with purity. So this has eternal ramifications. So this is a gift we should be praying for. And in our nature, this is a gift we should be fighting for. Because if you have this, as your wife ages, as she gains weight, as she has the cesarean sections, as she gets, as one woman told me, hail damage, cellulite,
Yeah.
cellulitis, all this
Yeah.
stuff. As that happens, we will be able to not just look beyond that or overlook it, but look into those things and see, gosh, this woman has sacrificed and she's given her life for me. And recognize that beauty is truly more than just being skin deep. And that takes some real mature man.
Oh, it really does. No, blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. I think that I'm so glad that you started right there, and that's such a good point, because we talk to men. One of them admitted to me, "I want to be a saint, just not yet."
This sounds like Augustine.
And exactly right. And he admitted it out loud to me, and so we have to talk to the Holy Spirit about that, because we need to want to be saints now, right? We're not promised tomorrow. But I think you made such a good point. The reason why that occurred to me was because he said it'll be given to you. That grace will be given to you to the measure in which you are seeking it, and to the measure that you are willing to work on it. When I started practicing custody of the eyes, I was married, actually. I had never heard about it. And it's just like, duh, we just are so busy, noise everywhere. And when I was first heard about it in a homily once, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Why don't you draw that out for guys who maybe don't understand the concept of custody of the eyes?
Yeah, exactly. So the custody of the eyes goes, there's a couple things within this, but the custody of the eyes is controlling your eyes and your gaze, so they can only be fixed on that which is holy. And so when we control our gaze, and I'm going to use the example of going through a grocery store and you're checking out and you see on Us Weekly or on People's Magazine half-naked women, right? You choose not to look at that woman, because your gaze is for your bride. Your gaze is for your wife. And so when we practice that, now this takes on many different shapes, women walking around immodestly, billboards, etc. But practice, controlling your eyes. There is a very unique correlation, right, which goes back to custody of the mind, custody of the imagination, right, which is why we don't watch horror movies and things of that nature, because Satan can't put in thoughts into our minds that we ourselves have not previously envisioned and seen. And so by controlling that which we allow in, we're able to minimize the influence of the evil one. And so this is so important. And I wish I had been told this when I was in 5th grade and there was pornography everywhere, and half my friends, including an altar boy, were showing that, because you allow yourself, and then you think that you can be in control. Guess what? You can't. We don't have control. And this is what's so important. So that's practicing custody of the eyes, something the monks all did for ages. And it can be really helpful. Ultimately, though, the goal that Devin and I talked about last week and we've talked about before is so that we can see purely, including other women, including these women who are physically attractive, and maybe they're being exploited at the moment, but we can see them for who they are, who God created them to be, and not just an object. So it
just reminds me, I read a commentary about the Pharisees and actually those who followed the Torah meticulously in Jesus's day. And so there was this idea that this purity, or this sexual purity, the Pharisee or the self-righteous one, he wouldn't even look up. And so he would bump into things, and the more things that he bumped into and the more bruises that he had, if you will, and the more beat up he looked, the more holy he was. And I think that's such a farce, and it's such a false idea of purity, because what we're talking about there is repression, and repression is not redemption. So I think Jesus, what you're talking about is so important, because if the eye is lightsome, Jesus says, how much light will be in that soul? But if the eye is dark, how dark will that darkness be in the person? And so this is what's so important about custody of the eyes. I mean, at least for me, I was convicted, is that I have no one else to blame but myself when it comes to custody of the eyes, because I am the custodian. That's where we get the idea of custody. Right. I'm the custodian and the guard and the gatekeeper of what I'm looking at and how I'm looking at it. And so in the end, I'm held accountable as that custodian. So whatever's inside of me, darkness or light, I can only blame myself. And out of the abundance of the heart, if you will, the mouth speaks. So what we're doing on the inside is going to determine our external activity. So there is nothing more manly, in my opinion, than when a man is married and he's talking with a beautiful woman and he's able to look her right in the eyes and he's able to overcome the temptation to lust and he's able to treat her like a counterpart, another human being. Because it's very interesting in the prayer, the Our Father, we say, lead us not into temptation. But actually, how many of us actually would be like, well, I kind of want to dabble with temptation. I kind of want to look at that video, or I kind of want to get on that, that particular app or whatever it is. I kind of want to look at that woman, but I won't go that far. You've already fallen.
Yeah.
Once you're allowing yourself to even enter the realm of temptation, James tells us the temptation develops into an act, and that act develops into a habit, and that habit develops into damnation. So we need to be on guard as custodians over the way we look at people.
Absolutely. And actually, so there are 12 things that we're going to go through within these 4 parts. And Devin has a blog that I'm going to put into the description, the show notes here, where you can click on to see these 12 things. Moving right on to the next one here, under purity, is failing to notice her beauty. And I think that's such a good one that was called out there. As purity calls you to delight in your wife's goodness and affirm her dignity, not ignore it, right? And so this is something, this kind of the counterpart to what we were just talking about, which is noticing her beauty and being grateful for that and letting her know that you are grateful for that, not with catcalls, but with like sincere appreciation. Exactly. Wow, you look beautiful. Her hair just got done. She's prepared for going to mass or a date with you, or just thankfulness when you get home and the kids are all alive and she is beaten down and you are so grateful for that beauty, right? Because there's beauty in the cross as well. And we have to, again, pray and work to learn to appreciate that. Benedict had a beautiful homily where he talked about the beauty of the cross. And I just think here it is, right? So failing to notice your wife's beauty is also a reason why she'll start feeling unloved. Devin.
A lot of times when we fail to notice her beauty, she gives up on trying to be beautiful. And so then there's a cyclical kind of dynamic where then he begins to resent the fact that she's not trying to be beautiful for him. And then she continues to spiral into this place where she doesn't even care any longer about being beautiful. So how do we avoid this? Now, it's not perfect. Every relationship is different. And let's face it, there is a certain amount of grieving that takes place as we age on both sides.
Yeah.
So and I want to be perfectly honest about this, because I think guys could be like, you guys are like idealistic. You're looking at this from a very kind of naive kind of perspective. No, as we get older and our wives age, there is a grieving process that takes place on both sides. The women, wives, they grieve the fact that they're aging, that their hair is thinning, that they're not as, they don't glow like they used to, and they're not as shapely as perhaps they once were. Guys grieve too. They grieve that loss as well. But it is up to the real man to, like, as you say, to see the goodness in her sacrifice as well. And then that's what makes her external attributes still beautiful and still desirous. It's a both end, because if we cannot see her soul being expressed in and through her body, we're just going to stop at the body. And that's where those big 3 you mentioned of possessing, comparing, and using, the CPU or whatever you want to call it, that is where we will begin to compare her to other women. I think Jesus, or at least St. Paul, talks about in Ephesians 5, where he says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loves the church, that he bathes her in the word, and he sees her as being without spot or blemish. So this is the key. When we're bathing our relationship with our wives in the word, when we're looking at her through the word of Christ. Husbands, love your wives in this way, wives this, but to see her as Christ sees her, when we bathe her in that vision, then we can see her without the blemish or the spot or the wrinkle physically, and we can begin to see her as that daughter of the God the Father, that bride of Christ, the bridegroom, and we begin to have this adulation, if you will, or this respect and this admiration for her that we wouldn't have just by looking at her flesh. So I think this is where the Christian faith is so powerful, is that it allows us to see beneath and through the skin, to see the beauty that is being, transmitted, I guess. Yeah.
And the two can be upheld simultaneously, right? We can both experience grief and respect and love beauty, her beauty at the same time, right?
Absolutely.
They're not mutually exclusive. They can be maintained within the heart of us. And we are two men here on this show that says it's possible. Like, we know we've both experienced this, and it is possible. And it's actually the beautiful breaking and letting go of ourselves for the sake of another. And we get to experience that throughout this, right? But that temptation is still there. And the temptation to go one way or another when looking at our wife. And so this is what really is at the heart, and it is possible, but it takes a man of constant striving, constant prayer, constant awareness, right? Because when your focus is your eternal salvation, when your focus is a relationship with Christ, then all of these things start to fall in play, and we see that. Yeah,
that's exactly right, because that's the end goal and hope, is our salvation, eternal beatitude. And if your eye is on that ball, then the pain. So there's two types of men. It's like the pain is always going to be there. The pain is never going to leave. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have pleasure in marriage. You're going to have joy in marriage, but there's always going to be a little bit of pain, sometimes a lot of pain. That's just reality. It's not going anywhere. There are two types of men. When the pain is there's the slave who runs, or he's a hireling. He flees from the pain, and therefore he never grows into the real man. But there's the other one, who's the son, the son is faithful. He remains, he doesn't flee. He remains with God the Father, and he trusts that this pain is there so that it solidifies his motivation for heaven. And also it solidifies he's loving altruistically and unselfishly. That's basically why marriage exists. It's like this prep school, if you will, or this clinic on how to love unselfishly and to actually love the other person, even in their defects, with the hope of a more glorious day, an eternal day without defect and without demise, if you will. So, or deformation even. So it's so important that we have our sight set on the right goal. Otherwise, when it happens, like say we start to age, we as men, we don't want to age. So what we do is we look to younger women to try to maintain our youth. I knew a guy who was like, he was like in his late 60s. He ended up marrying, very wealthy man, but ended up marrying a 24-year-old because it makes him feel young, even though everybody's like, that's a cartoon. I mean, it's foolish, you know what I mean? And on the other side, yes, he's trying to remain young, but also we're not, if we flee from our wives as they age, we're aging too. But what we're doing is we're saying, I'm incapable of seeing your true beauty shining forth through your flesh. And I'm not going to go there. I'm not willing to go there. I think that's devilish.
Yeah, it is.
But I'm not saying that as a condemnation. I'm saying we all struggle with this massively.
Correct.
But the temptation is there to forge us into real men.
Yeah. And so with the depth of this section on purity has already kind of come out, but I want to talk about these last 2 points here. And the next one is actually, men get this wrong, right? We miss this, commenting on her weight. Period. And stop, as they say. We respect her as a full person, not just as an object who's measured against our physical desires or other women. And so commenting on her weight is like Devin and I are here to be the first to tell you it's never okay.
It doesn't work. I'm just here to tell you
works.
It doesn't work.
Exactly. And this is not coming from well, no, we've thought through it. We've experienced. This is not coming from we haven't attempted this. We haven't, been like, no, this is a situation where I think it will work, right? As 100% the evil one. There, it does not work. So Devin.
So there was a gentleman I knew many, many years ago, and he would comment on his wife's weight all the time. Ugh. And she was very fit, but it drove her to this place where she was kind of insane about it, right? Because she was always afraid that he was going to comment on her weight, and their relationship really struggled because of it, because she didn't feel like she was loved unconditionally. It was always based on the condition of what she looked like. And it caused her a great deal of stress. And eventually, so what I'm saying is it betrays the man. The man's like, but think about this. Why do we do that? We do it because we're prideful, because we want the woman on our arm as we're in public to have the respect of all the men and all the women. Hey, look he's got a hot one there. And so it's all about us. It's all about our pride. And I think some of the greatest men are those who they've got average looking wives, but they're so into them, and they're like opening the door and laughing with them and having a great time. And they're able to rise above all that. And she feels so secure because he doesn't say, hey, baby, I got you, membership to the gym for Christmas, or I bought you a treadmill, or whatever, all these little hints. Hey, have you thought about walking a little bit more? I think it'd be really good for your heart. Well, no, you need something good for your heart. We're just so lame in our attempts to convince and manipulate. And the worst thing you can do is talk about, oh yeah, did you see so-and-so's wife across the street? I noticed that she's been exercising a lot, and she looks really good. It's like, you want to kill your marriage. That's the way to do it.
There it is. That's what you do to kill your marriage. So thank you, Devin. All right. The last one in this section on purity is using pornography. I know that I put it last because I didn't want to spend the whole section talking about what we did on last week's episode. But I found a new longitudinal study. So that's just a study that, walks with individuals over an extended period of time, that just looked at individuals that started using pornography within their marriage, or the husband did, or the wife did. And the stats are unanimous, right? They are, if the husband does, it's 2 times more likely to get a divorce. And if the wife does, it's actually 3 times more likely to get a divorce. And so it is a predictor, but here's the thing. We know this, right? Your wife is not one option among many in some sort of fantasy world. She is your beloved and needs to be treated as such. And so men, if you are struggling with pornography, just take this as a call out that you've got to fix this. You've got to stop. From Covenant Eyes to Strive to
Integrity Restored.
Integrity Restored. Thank you. Yeah, Jim O'Day, been on the show 3 times. Yeah, check out Integrity Restored. There's a lot that is out there, and you need to start doing it. And you need to find your group of men that you can be accountable to. This is something that's very serious. So,
I love the call out. And I think it's unacceptable for us to say, I can't help it, or my brain is so screwed up now by this, there's just no hope. And no, Christ's cross goes to the depth of the baseline, the floor of hell, and he can raise up the dead from there, as he did when he rose from the grave. And so no sin is beyond him. No addiction is beyond his grace, but we have to be willing, because let's face it, if we're doing this, we are going to destroy our relationships with wives, children, friends.
Yeah.
It just the way, back to the whole thing with the way we see, if what you're seeing is dark, how dark will the darkness be inside of you?
That's
and pornography is it. So the other thing that's really detrimental about this, though, is the more that, if I was to look at pornography, the more that I look at pornography, the more I cannot notice my wife any longer. because that comparison, because you can't help but to compare her to the AI, or airbrushed, or whatever this model is doing, starving herself, whatever is going on. We can't help but to compare our wives to that. So then what we do is we can no longer see our wives truly anymore. And so we don't see her as a person. We see her as a object negative. Like, because she's not going to be able to, after 3 children, 4 children, 10 children, there's no way she's going to be able to look like that, if you will. That's impossible. So what is it we're asking guys to do here? It's like, look at the fact that your wife is like God bearer, God's
Yes.
image in children. Look at the fact that she's bearing your burdens of your work, your stress, all that in her body. Look at her and realize that she is in it for the long haul as your Ezer Kenegdo, your essential counterpart, and she's doing whatever she can to be yours. So the pornography thing is just like, nah, I refuse to see her goodness. I'm just gonna dive down this road where all I want is this pleasure. But problem with it is, as we've talked about many times before, you'll never get to that height of that dopamine spike over time. It's just,
Yeah,
it
it just seems
creates
erectile
this
dysfunction, everything. Yes.
flat line, and then you're trying new things and you're becoming more and more diabolical in your
Yes.
perversion, and then you hate yourself. I mean, I have not met a guy who I've talked to about
Either.
pornography use that doesn't hate themselves.
Agreed.
They
Yes.
despise themselves over time.
Yeah. And so it is serious, and it's something that we have to take serious. You need to behold your wife in her entirety, in her wholeness, and not just as an object of your gratification. And I think this is great. This is purity, and I want to move on to the next P within this section here, and that's presence. And so she has to feel like you want to be with her and that you are present with her. Peter Kraft, I grabbed a quote here: love is attention. The
Yes, it
opposite
is.
of love is not hate, but indifference, right?
Indifference.
And so, indifference. And so love is attention. And the first one within this section is working long hours. This is actually the hardest one for me. And I don't mind saying that out loud, right? Between my life here as Undivided Life with as a chief marketing officer, as well as the Catholic gentleman, as well as my 6 incredible children, that finding time to be just present with my wife is an act of intention that I've got to prioritize. It can't be something that comes along midway through the day, like, okay, tonight I got to figure out how to spend time with my wife. It can't be like that, because inevitably something else of a higher priority or maybe more immediacy, like just presence in my life, takes up the presence that is owed to my wife. And so we have to practice this. And this one's a tricky one, right? Because working long hours, men can easily convince themselves that they're doing it for their wives. They're doing it for their children. And that's why they're committing to these long hours. And that becomes very dangerous. And so the first one here to call out within presence is this sense that you work long hours, and you're not committing, because, well, we'll go into more here, but I'd love to pass this over. And
I remember Matt Pinto years ago saying that work can become the mistress that steals our attention away from our wives. And so it's so true. And why is that? And I think it's important that we understand what we're psychologically, why we do what we do. So as men, some of us don't love to work. I love to work, but when I work, what am I doing? I'm trying to create something, produce something, find a solution to something. And there's a terminus to it. There's an end, and when that end occurs, voila, I feel successful. Well, with our wives, we know that by spending time with them, there's a potential of unraveling or opening up more potential problems or more potential struggles, right? Because we're going to find out about this problem she's having hormonally, or this problem she's having with the child, or the fact that she's unhappy with herself because she has gained weight, or whatever, or maybe she's just unhappy with us because we aren't paying attention. So I think that when a wife sees that a husband is sacrificing his occupation for the sake of his vocation, she is willing to sacrifice her lack of respect for him, and in replace of that, to respect him. I was just around some people, and this man, there's a husband, and when he would talk, the wife would basically cut him down in front of everybody. And it happened repeatedly through the event. And I was just like, first of all, I think it's unacceptable. I really do. I don't think that's a place for it. But it caused the question, why? And I was thinking, this guy is an extremely hard worker, and he's extremely involved in so many things.
And
when he's with her, and he's with, the conversations about those things. So, so what she wants is so this is the other caveat to that, is like, you could either be at work and away from her, or you can be with her and be at work and still be away from her.
Yeah. Agreed. Yes, exactly.
So what she wants is attention on her.
Yeah. Which is excellent into the next point here, which is you're rarely listening and you're tuning her out when you are, right? It's present but absent. And this is a father wound for so many kids, but we're here talking specifically about our relationship with our wives. But, presence, part of being and living out this presence, is attentive. It is being fully present. And so again, this of the P's, this is the trickiest one for me as well. And this is actually why Devin helped me 4 years ago now give up playing trumpet professionally. So I obviously was a professional trumpet player for decades, and I was doing that simultaneously. But what while working, while having 5 kids, while running the Catholic Gentleman, and I found myself never being fully present, partially present, but never fully present to my wife and my children at night. I would get home from a long day of work. I'd be tired. I'd be exhausted. I would have my checklist in my brain of what I needed to do with them, but it was always to get it done as soon as possible so that they could get to bed, and I could get to practicing. Yep. And this was the reality of my lived experience for so long. And so I wasn't attentive, and I could see it, especially in my daughters as they were aging, but definitely my wife. My wife was so patient with me, and she was so loving, and she always has been. But we could both see this, and we had those open communications, and it was time for me to let go of that. And Devin, thank you for your counsel. It was always so helpful throughout that. But rarely listening and tuning her out. This is something that it's so easy for men to do, right? And again, we can blame the fact that we're men and we're so lasered focused and stuff like that. Well, get over yourself and give your wife the attention that she needs. Remove distractions from your life. And so my smartphone on Sundays, my smartphone in the evenings is not on me, and it is always away from me intentionally, where it would inconvenience for me to go get it. Yep. And that inconvenience helps me to be present. And then when I find myself mentally being unpresent or not present there, I can offer it up in prayer. And so I think that this is such a good call out, Devin. So thank you for bringing it there, but rarely listening, tuning her out.
Yeah.
Is our next one.
Yeah. This is very difficult, but to be present, we have to kind of go through a series of actions to make sure that she knows that we're really intentionally invested. So first you ask whatever the question is. And in this case, if your marriage is struggling enough, to ask the question is hey, what can I do to make our marriage better? Or what am I missing here? And in a humble way is I really want our marriage to be great. What needs do you have that I'm just not administering to? That's kind of lofty language, but what needs do you have that I'm not meeting, and or addressing? And so that it moves from ask to attention. Then you listen. That's the second A, is you literally you're paying attention. You're listening to her words. You're not thinking about your work. You're not thinking about your hobbies. You're not thinking for a way out. Where's the door? You're paying attention. And then at that third A is just acknowledge it. Just go, man, I didn't realize that. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you're feeling that way. Whatever it is, acknowledge it, and then from that acknowledging, then it's this affirmation of her goodness, this affirmation of her beauty, this affirmation of your marriage that, hey, I want this to work. I love you. I want I want to do whatever I can to address your needs. And then it's affection at the end, holding the hand or just giving her a hug or just making that eye contact that says, I love you, whatever. But she wants this. We've done a little bit of research, not extensive, but it's amazing. Like every woman is insane. Every woman's biggest lament on the list of what their husband does not do that they want is that he doesn't listen. It's unbelievable. I would have never guessed that. I've been like, okay, he's, not helping out the kids, or he's working late hours, or he just wants sex too much, whatever it is. No, it's that he doesn't listen, which gives us a clue. What do women want? Ultimately, what brings about this closeness with them? Believe it or not, it's meaningful conversation.
Yeah. So there's the call. That is what we're called to do. And one way we can do this is moving on to our next point here, which is spending times with her in dates, right? Yep. Prioritizing dates. This is so important. I've brought it up on a previous episode. If you want to know how to date your wife, Devin and I came out with one earlier this year. And in that episode, and I'll mention it here, I admit that I didn't prioritize dates for my wife for probably about 5 years. And we would go on occasion, but it was random and it was never planned out and intentional. And since that has changed in our marriage and our lives, the ripple effects you cannot possibly list and experience. The times are so necessary, and the frequency is so important, and the consistency is so vital for this to be a deep part of your marriage. And that is actually spending time in private dates. I'll also add, again, just going back to knowing thyself, on our private dates, we bring my wife's phone and not my phone.
That's what we do too.
Leave my phone. Yep. Oh, great. Yeah. We'll leave my phone. And it's freeing for me as well. It's not there.
I'm interested. Why do you bring your wife's phone? I have my reasons for why we bring my wife's phone, but
yeah. So when my phone has my work on it and all of that, there's that strong temptation, which I can resist. And I don't. So we were bringing my phone and I was resisting it and I wasn't checking my phone, but presence of mind, when it's so close to you,
you're still tethered.
It's so easy. You're so tethered. Exactly. So that's exactly right. And so when we stopped doing that and it became, hey kids, here's my phone, we're going to take my wife's phone, it was freeing because my wife doesn't have that level of attachment to her phone, and it can be in her purse, etc. But she agreed with me and we talked through this. And so that's ultimately the reason why we started doing that.
That's the same exact for us as well as like, so if the kids need to contact us, they have a way to reach us, but I agree, man. I think what is the motivation here? The motivation is make your wife feel that she's number one in your life, that she's the most important person, not in the world, but in your world. So important. That's why this date night thing, that's why the lack of the phone at date night, that's why the consistency of date night is so important. Because as soon as you say, oh yeah, babe, sorry, can't do date night tonight, this business meeting came up, or hey, do you think we could move date night another night? The guys really want to get together. She's like, I am like second, third, fifth on the list, and that is not going to work. And I put that out 20 years, kick the can down the road, you're not going to be important to her any longer. She's going to be like, hey, you know what? You go get your own laundry. You go do your own laundry. Whatever it is, I mean, you're on your own. I mean, because resentment builds. That's a reality to life. So if you're not, what your input equals your output. Whatever I'm putting into the relationship is directly associated with what I will get out of the relationship. Not that that's why I do it, but that is true. Your input will be directly correlated to your output. So if I am not putting in my all into my marriage and making her number one, she's not going to do that for me. There's no way.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't want to be a slave.
Exactly. And I just want to double down on that, her feeling second or third or fourth. It's happened to me, right? I just made that comment about how I've added date nights back actively into our lives, and it's been great. But it's still this year, guarantee you, it's happened a couple of times this year where something else has come along, and I have to do this, and instead of finding another night to do that date, or it's usually work. It's always something that like I just can't get out of. Finding another night where that's not going to be a frequent thing, etc. She will start feeling it, and she'll be like, "Oh, this was great for a while, but I guess I still am second or third."
And the thing with date night is like your focus or my focus, a man's focus, is to try to develop that meaningful conversation, which means fundamentally we have to get outside of ourselves. We have to quit talking about ourselves in the echo chamber of our work problems and whatever we talk about or think about all the time. We really have to it's dying to yourself so that the other can come to life. And when you do that, you come to life also. It's the gospel in marriage is that he who lays down his life for another will gain his life. You will gain much more by getting into her and listening to her and having meaningful conversations with her. You will gain her and the marriage. But if you don't, if you're constantly talking about yourself, she's going to eventually be so tired of you that she's just going to resent you. And that's not what you want. You want to be respected rather than resented.
That's right. And there's this Venn diagram within all of these P's that we're talking about here, where there's these overlaps. And this last one can kind of be fit into purity, presence, and this final one, or this next one, a partnership. And that's complimenting her in public, right? So complimenting her beauty and how she looks in public, but also complimenting her sacrifices and who she is to your life and your gratefulness of it. That's presence right there, because presence goes from the silence and goes to that outward expression. And we're called to that. And I want to use this as a segue right here into the next point, which is our partnership, right? And that's where I was saying the compliments don't always have to be just on beauty. They can be on who she is and what she means to you and your family and how that brings it out. So this next point here, this next P is partnership, that she must know that you're on her side. And this is so important, right? I grabbed Galatians. It just felt right. Galatians here, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. And so our wives have a harder job staying home with kids, with dealing with the household things, with not having adult interaction and communication for weeks and months at a time. Like this is a different level of suffering and something that we have to be aware of. And so within this section, we talk about lack of empathy for her struggles. So that is the first point within this struggles, where you're feeling in your partnership with her is that lack of empathy for her struggles, right? Partnership stands with her, right? Indifference leaves her to carry this alone. You do your thing, I'll do my thing. We came to this agreement, right? And we'll both meet in the middle or something like that. Not at all, right? We're both 100% committed. We're both intentional about why we're doing what we're doing, and we are supporting each other, and we are being a part of the other's lives within this. So, Devin, when we start with partnership, I'd love to, what makes this true partner?
I struggle because I feel as though I fail at this quite a bit, because I have a disordered view of partnership in my marriage at times. And what I mean by that is at times I can kind of fall into this place where my wife is a partner to me, but in support of me and my mission. And then I forget that she has her own missions. She has her own things that she needs my partnership and my support for. And this is totally biblical. I mean, like, I know there are Catholic man evangelists who are like, I'm the master. Basically, she's the slave. I'm the head. She's subject to me. Okay, sure, you could get away with that language or the Andrew Tate mentality, but here's what's going on. In Genesis, God created a helpmeet, in the Hebrew, ezer kenegdo, which literally is essential counterpart, as a right hand is to the left. Okay, so as a right hand is to the left, that's pretty equal, right? Equal dignity, different roles and responsibilities, perhaps. That's what I believe. And so when you look at Christ as head, it's very interesting when it says, husbands, deliver yourselves up for your wives. It says in Ephesians. That word deliver is paradokein, which Jesus, it was used by Matthew when Jesus gave paradokein his disciples authority over demons. So paradokein is to impart authority. And that presupposes this. We have it primarily, but we impart it to our wives. Now, why is this important? It's because I have to realize that this is what I think a lot of us do, is that we kind of like think, I've got the mission, I've got the vision, I know what I'm about, and maybe she'll help me out here or there with some, but really I got this. And if she just kind of fills in the gaps, taking care of the kids and all that stuff, then I can do what I'm supposed to do.
For sure.
No. Your wife, if she is praying, is a conduit of the Holy Spirit, particularly that God has given for you. And a lot of times that is very humbling and convicting. You need her. I need my wife. Is so important that she's our Conegdo, our essential counterpart, and that we have actually established a paradigm where we're sharing our authority with her. And I love it. My wife, when she speaks wisdom. And in fact, her wisdom kind of cuts right deep in my heart, right to the fundamental problem. And it makes me a better man. And so if I look at her like she's subservient, or she's below me, or she does not even have her own mission, or her counsel is not worthy of me, that is all going to destroy the partnership.
Yeah, and we've talked about it before. Our wives have the gift of counsel, and I've mentioned it before, and I can't remember if it was Thomas Aquinas or who, but the head has to listen to its body, right? The head receives communication from the body, because a head that is disconnected from the body, well, is decapitated, it's dead. Right. And it's if it is connected, it's sick, it's unwell, it's unhealthy, right? If you think about your own physical body. And if the nerves aren't sending signals that your hand is hot when it's sitting on an oven, or your stove, or your leg is broken and you try and keep on walking on it, right? If that's not communicating, you're going to be a poor sight for anyone. And that's the reality within marriage as well. And we have to then change this to have that empathy and that support for her with our children. And that's another point that I know you brought up in the thing, and within this partnership, is that supporting her and mothering the children, right? Like it even though she's taking care of the kids predominantly, she needs that time away. She needs you to be the authority within your kids' lives too. They need to know and understand that if they disrespect their mom, your wife, the discipline might be worse than if they disrespect you, so that right order is brought in there. But we have to do this together. Again, we just substitute out parts of our raising of children to our wife. It's like we substituted this out, and then we don't consider ourselves responsible for the outcome, and for the caring, and for the support that our wife needs. And I think that this is what's so important within this.
There's two kind of extremes, in being erroneous extremes in this matter, is that where we can be so forward thinking and proceeding headlong into how we're going to run the house, what home projects we're going to do, or what the next thing is, without even acknowledging our wives' thoughts on it. What considerations does she have? On the other side, we can just be like, hey, whatever you want to do. And what that actually says to your wife is, he doesn't give a rip.
Yep.
He doesn't care about me at all. And she might carry, but then she carries the burden of, oh, do we pour another driveway or not? Do I have to work with the contractor? I mean, he's out to lunch, and but I think that what it boils down to is do I really believe that my wife is a gift to me in such a way that she's a representative of God and his wisdom and his love? I have to esteem her. If I don't esteem her being, her person, then I'm just going to either do that. I'm going to move headlong with my own decisions and my own desires. I'm going to just dismiss her. Or on the other hand, I'm just going to be like, I am going to dismiss her, but I'm going to dismiss myself in the process. Be like, whatever, you got it, babe. I think women love it. Wives love it when their husbands are like, hey, I've been thinking about X. What do you think? And she might have all these ideas. Now, women, if you're listening, guys, do not like to be nagged, and they do not like to
Yeah.
be told what to do. They do not like to be directed. So on your side too, come alongside as a partner and offer counsel and talk through it, but don't be like that, that nagging wife who's dictating to her husband, oh, you need to do that, you did it wrong, or I don't like that, you need to do it over, and all that, because that does happen too. There are wives who are often never satisfied. And
Agreed.
that guy, I'm telling you what, he is just going to give up. He is going to go off and do his own thing. He does not want to. He will never have a conversation with his wife. It's like, honey, is there anything that you need from me that I'm not providing? There is no way, because he's going to be like, oh my gosh, she is just going to nag at me. She's going to tell me what to do. She's going to be another boss. There is no way he's going to do that.
And because life affects change in emotions and experience affects a change, I think it's so important that if you have this conversation with your wife, and she is going to handle some aspect, right? You said, hey, we need a contractor. You brought that up. That what seemed good in thought and in conversation might not be good in reality. So it's important for us men to constantly be present and be true partners, to bring this up and to communicate this with her effectively. Awesome. So I want to jump on to the last point here, number 4, right? So we've talked about purity, we've talked about presence, we've talked about partnership, and now we're going to be talking about peace. And by peace is that she must feel secure in your leadership, secure in your love. This is the core, using St. Joseph as our model and diving right in. He did not burden our Blessed Mother with his insecurities. He did not burden our Blessed Mother with his lack of confidence and with his worries and concerns. Saint Joseph carried them boldly, and he carried them with strength and with peace. And my goodness, men, this is a big one. This is such a huge one, because how many times do we go home after a tough day and we want to complain to our wives because we just need to vent? Stop it. How many times do we have a great day and we go home ignorant to how our wife's day was, and we just want to share in that celebration of whatever we experienced, and she's had a tough day, right? I want you to show up, whether you are working from home and you're opening that door to go downstairs or to the kitchen, or you are driving home and you pull into that driveway and you stop and you say, Lord, however I felt today, help me pause and help me first be present to my wife and where she needs me to be. This is so important. The highs or the lows of your day shouldn't be impressed upon your wife. And that's a tough one. And I want to call that out. How many times have I just had a great sale or nailed something in the market and it was incredible, and I want to share in my joy with my wife, and that there's a time and a place for that. But maybe she just had a horrible day, and the last thing she wants to hear is how incredible your day was.
Yeah, for sure.
And so this is so important. We have to not burden, like Saint Joseph as our model. We have to not burden. And I know we're getting late in this episode here, so I want to talk about the last one, then pass over to you, Devin. The last one is expressing jealousy and envy, right, to our wife. So a man of peace, a man in peace, belonging in peace to Christ, our Savior, and to God's infinite will in his life. Trust. Jealousy just breeds suspicion and drains her of that sense of security and safety that we're talking about. So, Devin, as we wrap up this episode, I'd love to hear your thoughts on helping our wife feel secure in your love and your leadership.
Okay, if she's to feel secure, you have to be secure. The only way you can be secure is if you're not finding your value from human beings and opinions of human beings. You do not receive your glory from men, as Jesus Christ says. How do you do that? By having a great prayer life where you're meeting every day with God the Father to obtain your divine sonship, to grow in that divine sonship with Jesus in you. That's where the security, the confidence comes from. That way you don't compare, you don't despair, you only admire and aspire, and then you'll become like Christ, and your wife will feel that and she'll be like, gosh, I feel secure in him, my husband, I feel secure in God, and I feel secure in myself to try new things, good, holy things, and that's when the family just aspires.
Oh, so good, man. We are Catholic men, and this is possible. And I know we talked about quite a bit today, but I hope that it really set in. I know it did for me. I know I'm already going through a number of these points and thinking, yep, I'm intentional. I got to be intentional today about this, tomorrow about this week, etc. And it's that constant recurring, it's that constant redeeming, it's that constant improving as we grow in virtue and we grow towards a deepening of our relationship with our wives. And we're so blessed to have our wives and so grateful for them. And so here we are at a moment in our episode of putting on the new man. And if you made it this far, congratulations. We're glad that you're with us. In putting on the new man, I want to encourage you to take your wife on a date. I know it's like, well, John, you bring that up often because it's this important because I didn't do it for so long. And so prioritize it. Pick a day on the calendar in the very near future and let your wife know, here is the day that we're going on a date and here is where we're going because you've already planned that out. And here's a babysitter or a parent swap if you funds are low. Be creative. Don't come up with excuses as to why you cannot be fully present and available and taking your wife on a date. And I promise you, do this now and it carries dividends long into the future, and be consistent about it. So that is putting on the new man. Devin, any final words for our men as we
All
are
good. Perfect.
finishing it up? Well, Devin, what a blessing. Always a joy. I'm grateful for all your thoughts and insights, and I'm going to put that article in the show notes here. And as we end each of our episodes,
be a man, be a saint.